Good afternoon, everyone, and once again, welcome to the Command Center for Information on Saint Lucia's COVID-19 response, spearheaded by the Government Information Service. We also want to thank all the partner local television and radio stations who have been assisting us in the spreading and disseminating of factual information associated with Saint Lucia's COVID-19 response. I am Nicole McDonald. I am sitting in for your regular anchor, Lisa Joseph, who has been working day and night and is obviously in need of some rest. Today, we are joined by Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security, Senator the Honorable Hermangild Francis, and Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Milton Desir. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
Of course, over the last week, especially, there have been matters arising that fall directly under security and justice. And we thank the Minister and the Commissioner for taking time to speak with us today on some of these matters. The most recent development has been the declaration of the state of emergency by the Governor General. Parliament also approved the declaration of the state of emergency and an additional period of 26 days, starting from the end of the effective date of the proclamation, which is 31st March 2020 and terminating on 26th of April 2020. So we want to get right into that and start with Minister Francis, just to explain to us what exactly does the state of emergency mean and what were the reasoning behind it.
Thank you very much, Nicole. State of emergency is really the ultimate piece of legislation that a government can utilize in trying to curtail a disaster in our country, an uprising, an act of war, or in a pandemic as we presently have with the coronavirus. It gives the government a great deal of power, immense power, that must be utilized in a very humane way, and but it has to be done. We have noticed that the countries that have used the very draconian pieces of legislation have been the ones who are successful, like our friends from Taiwan. They were successful in being able to manage the COVID-19 epidemic. When we look at Italy, which has one of the best health systems in the world, was very lax and allowed persons to enter and not using using the soft approach. We now see what has happened, and they have now gone to elevated status of a state of emergency. It is important to know that the state of emergency gives the Prime Minister immense powers, and I remembered in the House of Assembly that certain members were questioning why we went directly into a state of emergency, whereas there were several pieces of legislation that could have been used. And some of the pieces of legislation that they mentioned were pieces, the Computer Misuse Act, Quarantine Act, Emergency Disasters Act, the Guidelines for Natural Systematic Shutdown, the Public Health Act. But I must indicate that in all those pieces of legislation, the minister with responsibility must go to Parliament and have a negative resolution so that he or she can instill or impart certain parts of the law. Now, there's a number of pieces of legislation. For example, the Computer Misuse Act, which the state of emergency would give the police the powers to arrest and charge anybody who has sent out malicious or fictitious messages on the computer. With the Computer Misuse Act, we must, after having done all our investigations and an arrest is made, must get the concurrence of the DPP before you can lay any charge. And that is problematic sometimes. With the Quarantine Act, the Minister of Health has to also go to Parliament to get legislation passed and to make regulations and rules. All this takes time. And in a situation as liquid as what has happened here, we could not use these specific pieces of legislation. Over the weekend, we saw what happened. That we allowed our nationals to come in, especially from Martinique. The Consul General from Martinique, Ms. Joanna Sultan, was able, with the government and the prefect and president of Martinique, and the goodwill of Express Diesels, to bring in some of our Saint Lucians. They were told that they would be quarantined. The name of the hotel was given to them. The number of days they were going to be there was also given to them. We saw thunderous applause from the persons on the boat at that time. But yet still, when they got to Saint Lucia, we saw what happened. And this caused a panic in our country. We have also now realized that persons are transporting individuals from Martinique, the fishermen, by pirogue into Saint Lucia. So you had to give the government the sort of power to be able to stop that sort of situation. And only the State of Emergency Act would have been able to allow us to do what is necessary to stem this pandemic. So this is the reason why the state of emergency was sought after. I must say that I was a little disappointed when I was in Parliament with some of the statements used by some of the opposition members. And we, especially one member, when he said that there was a school of thought on his side that the state of emergency was not necessary. But they were going to allow the Prime Minister to have those powers to do what he had to do. But they were going to monitor him very carefully, which suggested that there was an ulterior motive on behalf of the Prime Minister in asking for a state of emergency. And that was really unfair. And I think that they knew better and should never have been said in the House of Assembly. That having been said, I want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for understanding and being able to go along with what we are trying to do. As we noticed that the Prime Minister did make concessions to the Leader of the Opposition by bringing down the number of days somebody can be incarcerated having been arrested under the state of emergency. And I just want to show and read parts of the Constitution so that persons understand how serious this matter is. And so those persons who are taking part in the illicit transporting of persons from Martinique into Saint Lucia will know that these laws are very draconian. So I want to just read section 15. 1. When a person is detained by virtue of any such law, as is referred to in section 14 of this Constitution, the following provisions shall apply. That is to say, A. He shall with reasonable promptitude, and in any case not more than 7 days after the commencement of his detention, be informed in a language that he understands and in detail on the grounds upon which he is detained, and furnished with a written statement in English specifying those grounds in detail. So there it is. It tells you that the police could have kept an individual for at least 6 days without even telling him what he has been arrested for. Section B says, not more than 14 days after the commencement of his detention, a notification shall be published in the official gazette stating that he has been detained and given particulars of the provision of law under which he has been detained is authorized. Again, you could be kept in custody for at least 13 days before we publish in the official gazette the reason why you have been arrested. And there is more. But I just want to make persons understand that this is very serious and we should not be engaging in the issue of bringing persons from Martinique to Saint Lucia. Only yesterday, based on the information received from the Commissioner of Police, that 2 persons from a district on the East Coast had to be taken by the police and brought in for quarantine. This is very, very serious.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. I was hoping you would go into some details regarding the curfew. That has been something people have been concerned about in terms of the hours for that, and obviously the social distancing measures.
Okay. Again, the curfew is part of the state of emergency. And a curfew can be very, very draconian in that the Prime Minister can decide what are the times that he can use as the curfew time. So he can start from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. next day, and so on. But we felt that just beginning and just starting, that we could have allowed for a 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. start, thereby giving persons sufficient time especially those who are working in essential services, to get to their home. I don't see any reason why somebody should be out on the streets after 11 o'clock, except you're a police officer, you're a nurse coming from work, and so on. So I think that was very, very good of the Prime Minister to start with the 11 p.m. But we are going to monitor in that time, and if we have noticed that the police are having difficulty in dealing with the time that we have stated, then we can always make it a little more stiff by bringing the time even further down to 10, 9, or 8. We don't want to do that. So far, I have noticed that persons are adhering. Last night, I left home and I did my own patrol in my area of Ansari Canneries. And I'm pleased to announce that everyone, and I'm very surprised, everyone seemed to have kept that curfew. I drove around with my lights shining and flashing, and I didn't encounter anybody.
So as it stands now, the curfew is 11 p.m. to 5 a.m.?
5 a.m.
5 a.m.
Right.
So between those hours?
Well, I wasn't out at 5 a.m. but I was out about 11:30, and I did that around. And I can tell you that I was very, very pleased that all the shops and persons who were off the streets, I encountered only 2 vehicles in that during that time. And so I want persons to continue. We did get information from Sozel on the Saint Lucia beach about 6 that persons were there congregating and having a party. Again, one of the most profound pieces of advice that has been given and shown to be working is the social distancing. Yeah. I mean, even Cabinet has initiated that. So Cabinet does not meet in one spot. We do what we call the Zoom.
Yes.
And so ministers are at various locations and doing Cabinet by Zoom. So we are encouraging, we have taken the proactive step. The churches have been doing their part, and we are asking our citizens not to engage in those social activities where there are more than 10 persons involved.
Of course, Minister, and obviously there would be legal repercussions if persons continue to engage in those activities. I want to bring in Commissioner Desir now. Can you let us know, Commissioner, how does the state of emergency declaration assist the police force in its duties at this time?
Okay, first of all, under normal circumstances, a police officer would be, you would encounter persons on the streets 11, 12, whatever time. You cannot force anybody to go home or get them out of the street. But with that being pronounced, it gives us the power to it gives us to enforce any laws that is in place. And I must indicate that at that point we are doing very well with it. However, we have some challenges with persons coming in from neighboring Martinique, and that I must indicate that steps have been taken to curtail that situation. We have had 24-hour surveillance, both by the presence of the Marine unit and by otherwise, but we going to be very strict on that. Actually, I have emptied the cell at Custody Suite. The persons who were there were transported to Masha and other police stations. Custody Suite is empty, and it is for that purpose. Any person caught on the waters or on the beaches, or if we have information that even if they have landed, they would have landed illegally, and the police has the power to arrest them, and that is what we will do. I have had conversation with medical so that they would have their visits at Custody Suite, just as if they were at the detention quarantine centers. I must say that is not the way we want to go, but we, at that point, I believe we have no choice. And I must also indicate that most of the information received is that they are coming in probably by night. Now, persons who know the sea at night would understand that it is not like on the day. Boats have light, but it is just for other other vessels to see them. The light on a vessel does not permit you to see anything. So when somebody has been intercepted, a vessel has been intercepted, I cannot guarantee persons on that vessel that they would have it safe, a safe arrest. So I don't know, persons can interpret what I am saying, but I could tell you things may happen in the night. So appealing to everybody, those who have families over in Matnik, let them stay in Matnik. Okay.
What happens, Commissioner, to persons who have brought those people illegally in and persons who may be harboring those persons?
Yes, also persons, it would be smuggling. And persons who are doing this would be arrested. Also persons who are harboring these individuals. So we are saying that that is done all in the hope of protecting, limiting the spread of the COVID-19, because it comes again under the social distancing aspect. You come in from Matnik, you have not been checked by medical, you do not know, and the persons you may infect, even your own family, you may infect other individuals. So I am saying that we will be there, and any person caught, I will not take them to the quarantine area, which voluntarily they were taking them. Persons at that place free of charge. It is a hotel, it is not a detention. Persons have not committed any crime, so persons are free there, and so I don't know why persons do not want to stay there. But we are saying that if persons do not want to comply, they will be arrested and taken into the other quarantine place, which is the custody suite.
I just want to say something, Nicole, in connection to what the Commissioner is saying. We must understand that we have our ports of entry, and these are designated ports of entry. By having the state of emergency, we have closed our ports of entry. So anybody coming into Saint Lucia right now, you are coming in illegally. And I do not want, and I will not allow to put my officers of the Marine Unit in danger. As the Commissioner was saying, in the night, we do not know what persons would have had in their possession, whether firearms, other things like dynamite and so on, because some of them do that. They engage in using dynamite to catch fish and so on. And so my police officers' safety will be paramount, and they will do what they have to do to make sure that they are safe. So it is not a threat. It is just the reality that in the darkness there, you cannot make sure that those persons are not armed and dangerous.
I want to speak a little bit about the quarantine facilities, but before we get there, Minister, can you discuss or explain to us some of the support government is providing to the police at this time, or in preparation for something like this?
Well, I think the Honorable Prime Minister has spoken to the Commissioner and has told the Commissioner that anything that he needs to be done, he can do it, and we would pay for the expenses. So I think the Commissioner will be calling in some of his officers from leave. He will be using the help of the Special Reserve. I've told him that we also have the city police, who now there are no cruise ships in town, and the curfew is going to be on, that he can actually make use of those individuals. So we are not going to leave any stone unturned. It's going to be costing the government a lot of money. And I know persons are asking for sort of packages from the government and so on, but I think the Prime Minister has been very clear that we have to beat this COVID-19 epidemic first, and then we will deal with the economic fallout that is there. But there are things that are apparent, that we have over $700 million in treasury bonds and so on to pay. And I know that the Prime Minister is working very, very, very hard to see whether persons will allow us to pay them at another date, as was done for Dominica after Dominica had the hurricane. We are getting some good info from some of the International Monetary Fund and our banks and so on. We are discussing with NIC, and the Prime Minister, I don't know how he's doing it, and I think all Saint Lucians should really pray that our Prime Minister can stand, because the amount of things that he's doing at one time is very, very overwhelming, and he needs our prayers, he needs our support, and that is why I'm so happy that the leader of the opposition has recognized that it's all in. That was our theme for our independence, all in, and he has joined. And I think with all hands on deck, we will beat this epidemic.
Okay. We're also taking questions via Facebook, so we invite persons to please follow the broadcast and post your questions. We will be referring to some of the questions on Facebook. We have a question from Sheldon Lannell coming from Facebook. Will the police be wearing protective gear when interacting with the perpetrators?
Yes, actually all police officers who would be on the front line, they have been issued protective gear. We also, starting from today, we have dedicated teams, these extraction teams. So if there's any need, an officer or any member of the public has reasons to believe that somebody may be affected but is doing anything, they will call, and then these dedicated teams would be dispatched to bring in those individuals. So we have had the protective gear in place.
Okay, Commissioner, can we speak a little bit about the security at the quarantine facilities? We did see some videos going around of persons escaping. We have heard you speak about people who are even in self-quarantine, going out and walking around. Where are we now in terms of reassuring the public that the quarantine facilities are being properly manned?
Yes, actually we have police officers at the quarantine facilities, and sadly so. I believe if persons are quarantined for their own health, for other individuals' health, for the health of, for the country as a whole, persons should remain, and there should be no police guarding anybody at a quarantine facility. These police officers could have been out there securing the properties of persons who we are saying go home. And I think it is an indictment on those individuals for behaving in such a manner, wanting to jump quarantine. You were there for 14 days, remain, you have medical checking on you to see if there's anything, any change in your system. So I am saying that it is it is sad, and but the officers are there, and then we would be able to manage the situation.
One of the things I think that has also come up is the curiosity of people coming near some of the facilities. How do you handle that? People seeing it as somewhat of an attraction.
Actually, a quarantine facility is supposed to be isolated by itself. Persons should not ordinarily come to the facility to see, to visit or anything, because the persons are in quarantine, and that is what it is, quarantine. And if even under the Quarantine Act, where Rat Island was suggested to be a quarantine place, it is because it is out of the ordinary. And if a place has been quarantined, it's supposed to remain sterile, and persons ought not to be to be there. But I want to assure members of the public that the police, we will do what it takes to ensure that persons who have skipped quarantine are returned, persons who are, they have not been quarantined but have been identified as being showing signs of it, or if you have any information that persons may have come through illegally, the police would attend to it and then to ensure that persons are brought in.
Okay.
And I just want to piggyback on what the Commissioner said. This government has shown that the empathy and sympathy with persons now returning from Martinique and so on. And
Minister, you could, Minister?
and as other countries have used other facilities like schools and old barracks and old prisons, but our government, with the assistance of the hoteliers, have been able to give persons first-class facilities. I know it's not an easy thing to be away from your friends and family for 14 days, but there are people up there. You're being fed, and you have everything, television. There are Saint Lucians that don't have a television at their home. There are so many Saint Lucians that don't even know what air condition is, and we survive. And yet still those persons have those facilities, and yet still persons want to run away. It does not make sense. And we have realized that in the beginning it was difficult, Now I think they have understood the gravity of the situation and they are behaving themselves. But like I've told them, if you don't behave yourself, then the police will take serious action, because this is serious times.
But it is definitely about personal responsibility. We want to take a short break. Stay with us. We are talking with the island's Minister for Security and Justice and the Police Commissioner. We'll be right back. It's Power Bike time!
Hey, you need to cover your mouth. Don't you know about the coronavirus?
It's not a joke, it's a serious thing.
True that. What's coronavirus anyway?
The coronavirus is a group of viruses that causes the common cold. In more severe cases, it's like the flu.
Really? So are you saying that this is not a new virus?
No, it isn't new. It's a new strain. That's why some people say novel coronavirus. Yes, look at it like a family who just had a new baby.
I get it now. So how is it spread?
Through the air, like coughing and sneezing, touching objects, surfaces with the virus on it, touching your face, your eyes, your nose, your mouth before washing your hands with running water and soap.
Sounds like someone has the flu or the cold. Are the symptoms the same?
The symptoms are fever, coughing, sneezing, headaches, just like the flu. In some severe cases, you also have breathing difficulties and chest pains. Some persons also get pneumonia and kidney failure, and as you have heard the news, some people have died.
Wow. So how do I protect myself?
We have always been told to wash our hands with running water and soap. In the event there is no running water and soap, you use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer of at least 70% alcohol. Try your best to avoid touching your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. And in the event you need to sneeze and cough into a tissue, you throw the tissue into a bin. If you do not have tissue and you need to sneeze or cough, you do it into your elbow.
Yes, I heard that. So what medications can we take?
Well, as the virus is new, there is no medication or vaccine that you could really take to prevent it. What we really have to do is to practice infection control measures to protect ourselves.
Hey, people. I need to get a sweat. Let's get moving.
Let's do it, guys.
So, wait, how do I get more information?
Good, I have that number on lockpad. For further information, contact the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349, 468-5347, or 468-5342.
Let's defy limits! Woo! Come on! Welcome back, everyone, to the COVID-19 Response Center, spearheaded by the Government Information Service. We definitely want to continue to thank all our partner local television and radio stations who have been broadcasting the information coming out of this command center. We're speaking here with the Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security, Honorable Hermangild Francis, and the Acting Commissioner of Police. We've been having a very good discussion on the state of emergency and what it means, and we're obviously taking some of your questions on Facebook. So I want to start, Minister, with a question from Facebook from Aniel Innocent, who asked, Mr. Minister or Commissioner, please speak to the issue where passports were confiscated. I think some people are screaming violation of human rights and not taking into consideration the reason why these passports were kept. So, Mr. Minister, can you address this one for us?
Yes, I can do that. As we understood that the trip was organized and it would not have been prudent for those persons to be processed on the wharf, as was told by the Consul General in Martinique, that they were going to be taken directly to the Starfish Hotel. And we took the passports and we kept the passports so that when they got to Starfish, we would have been able to identify who was there and who was not. The second reason why we the passports were used, were taken, is that rooms were assigned to individuals. And the medical officers at the time wanted to have a list of who was assigned to which room. And so the passport was part of using that process. But there are times that the government can take a passport because it belongs to the government of Saint Lucia, but we never confiscated. Like I said, we took it because of the logistics that we wanted to be done it as quickly as possible to get those persons settled at the hotel, and as soon as everything was settled, they received their passports.
And obviously it would make sense for you to gather people's information to get some kind of official information from them, especially in light of the fact that later on you had people who were trying to escape. Commissioner, do you want to address this issue as well?
Yes, and actually there is a process, immigration, when you enter a port of entry, your passport would be stamped and so on. But as a minister have said, it was not done, it was not feasible at the time with the crowd to do it there. So the immigration would have taken all these documents and then take it to the place, and then where it would have, the process would have gone on. Also, that with the passports, persons were expected to remain at the facility for 14 days. I don't think anybody was hoping to travel anywhere. And so I don't think anybody missed the use of their passports. The passports were secured. There's nobody missing or lost passport or anything. So I don't even think in our situation now in Saint Lucia with COVID-19 that the issue of passport being held back should come on.
Okay, we have another question from social media. We have a question from Alvin Paul. What about our fishermen who are venturing out to sea in an effort to service their various consumers or customers, bearing in mind that illegal boats are out there on the ocean?
Again, that's a very, very good question, and I want to commend the person for asking. It is important that we get our vitamins and so on, and that we need the fishermen to go out there and to be able to get the daily bread. If we stop the fishermen, then that means that's another group of persons who are on the bread line, and the government may have to subsidize. But I don't think that fishermen go out at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning and come back at midnight. Okay, they do come back at a time when they are able to meet people on the ditos and to be able to sell the fish. So I don't think that would apply to the fishermen who are fishing fish. We are looking at the fishermen that are fishing human beings taken from Martinique and bringing here. And those are the persons that we are dealing with. We will not be interfering with the bona fide fisherman who is trying to survive and to take care of the country's needs.
I actually do think the fishermen are on the list of essential services
yes.
That has been released by NEMAC.
NEMAC, right.
I see someone also asking about whether supermarkets would be closing. I know that supermarkets are also on the list
yes.
of essential services, which are approved by NEMAC and obviously under the emergency powers order.
And not only the big supermarkets, but little shops, grocery shops within the communities, they are allowed to open. But as you know that these little community grocery shops, they only sell groceries. They normally sell other things that are a little stronger than the groceries. And so it just has to be monitored. We need to speak to those owners that they have to understand that it is the groceries that they need to sell. And if they don't, and if the police finds out that they're engaging in other things other than selling groceries, then we may have to shut them down. But the idea is that persons should not really go too far to go and get the groceries. Some of us
they should leave their kids at home as well. I think that's one of the rules that came out.
So if you go into the village where the village has a grocery shop, it's better that you do that than to go up north to one of these big supermarkets.
Commissioner, we have a question in relation to manpower at the force at this time, and someone is asking whether the cadet corps will be pulled in, or are they already assisting in the efforts?
Okay, at present the cadet corps has not been pulled in, but these are persons that we could tap into their resources. I know that manpower is an issue, but we are doing our best to manage. For example, a question was also asked, why 24 hours sea surveillance? What before? Why were we not doing? But I must indicate that there are offices that are not fully functional, and persons have been withdrawn from those functions, and then 18 individuals who are trained at Marine Unit, these office persons have replaced them, and then these individuals were sent to the Marine Unit. So you have an additional 18 persons to operate. And also I must say that the Prime Minister had given us an additional boat, so we have more resources to do the job. So that is why at first we could not do 24 hours, and now we can provide the 24-hour service.
Okay, another question, Commissioner, since you're answering. Someone is asking, saying that they're very happy that the police is serious about the smuggling going on between Saint Lucia and Martinique, and they're hoping that this continues. So what will be done to make sure that even after the COVID-19 that we continue this vigilance on our waters?
Yes, I'm not sure how long it would be, COVID-19. However, I could, if we do not have the physical presence on it, there we have means to man the waters. However, I must say, since I think we're in the process of going across to border control, so more resource under that regime, more resources would be available, and we would be manning the waters 24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Commissioner just actually picked my brain there, because we are supposed to be going into border control, and the Marine Unit, it will eventually not be known as the Marine Unit, but as the Coast Guard. So there are going to be more facilities for them. There are going to be more equipment, and we know for a fact that we are going to get the assistance that is so required for the Marine Unit. So yes, I think the Marine Unit will be much better when they do come into the border control system.
One of the issues we've been grappling with, the world has been grappling with, is the spread of fake news associated with COVID-19, especially with regard to social media platforms and fake voice notes being shared on the WhatsApp platform. The whole world is battling this. It's not just a Saint Lucia problem. What's your message to people out there in terms of those who develop this information and send it out, and those who share it? Are there any, what's the legal ramifications for something like that?
Yes.
Commissioner? Yes.
Yes, for the was a policy. Yes, actually, under the Computer Misuse Act, persons can be brought in, especially once they have been identified, and I must tell you that we have means of identifying those individuals, even those that use the fake names on social media. So we would be going on a drive to bring in persons. At least if we make an example of one, persons would realize that this thing is serious, and that it should not be practiced.
Minister?
Yeah, I think these are very unpatriotic people that want to do this sort of harm, and they must be discouraged from doing that. Like I said, with the Computer Misuse Act, the police, having done all the work, must still go to the DPP for him to decide whether he should prosecute or not. But there is a section of the Criminal Code that you can use malicious information. But that is why the Emergency Act was passed, so that the police does not need the concurrence of the DPP to take it to court. They can do it on their own based on the state of emergency powers that they have. So it is important that persons realize that yes, you may be getting your kicks from it, and you have a few persons following at the end of the day, but the danger and the damage that you're causing, because people are advising people to do all sorts of things, drink chemical, drink this, drink that, and you're going to get people getting sick and harming themselves because they're going to try, because people are very, very scared, and whatever remedy that they think that might work, they will try and do it, and in so doing, you may injure even your own people. So your children are reading it and not realizing it's from you, and then you go about and do it, and then what happens? Your people will suffer.
Yeah.
So yes, you may get some kicks out of it, but it is not a good thing to do, and we must desist from doing it.
It definitely creates panic, and I also think it hurts the efforts of the health officials who have been trying to put out the official information, and they constantly have to be responding to fake information that is out there. One of the things that happened last week, Minister, was a situation at the Bordelais Correctional Facility. I do want you to speak with this and to update us on where we are at in terms of the recapture of those prisoners.
Okay, my information was that about 6 prisoners subdued a prison officer and were climbing the fence. The other prison officers were alerted, and at least 4 of them were kept back. 2 were able to climb the fence. I could tell you that one of the prison officers did in fact have a clear view, and I know you should understand what I mean by a clear view, but he chose not to initiate that action. But quickly afterwards we were able to rearrest one of those individuals. The individual that was out there is very dangerous, and the citizens should not approach this individual. If you have information, you must call the police as quickly as possible. But that precipitated another incident at Bordelais, where some of the prisoners in a particular block decided that, well, their friends have escaped. There is COVID-19. They are not allowed to see their family. They're not going to court. And so they decided to take some action into their own hands. What they did was to destroy some of the mattresses and catch it on fire and drop it in the center of the facility. That would not have burned down the facility. They were smart enough to realize that would not burn down the facility. They had the cameras and they wanted to censurize it, so they blasted it. But the prison officers were very quick, and they did in fact have time to put things under control before I got to the facility and before Mr. Desir could get there. But I could have told these prisoners that they would have been either one or two things: that they would have behaved themselves very quickly, or they would have suffered the consequences. I have indicated that some of the prisoners who have damaged the mattresses to catch the fire, that we don't have the finances right now to buy new mattresses, so they will use the piece of mattresses that they have until we have settled it and be able to purchase new mattresses. That is not a priority now. So they understand, but in a place like the prison, it is very volatile. We saw what happened in Trinidad, and prisoners will try anything to gain their freedom. But we're trying to push some of the cases still. Magistrates' courts are still operating, so we're trying to deal with sexual offenses, child maintenance offenses, and other things that we can expedite very quickly. There are some places at Bordelais we're looking to see, maybe about 30 to 40 of them, that we can try and see whether we can get bail for them. We are taking other steps, and the Commissioner alluded to it, that the custody suites will be used, because we will not be able to arrest somebody today and then take you tomorrow to Bordelais. That might contaminate Bordelais. So you're going to spend some time in quarantine at custody suites until you're healthy enough or you've been proved to be not infected, and then be processed to Bordelais. I want to thank the prison officers immensely for the work that they've been doing. It's not easy, but we're looking to see how we can get accommodation for some of the police officers and the prison guards, because this thing is so serious that when you go home after you have gone to the quarantine area, that your clothes, your shoes, everything should be taken off. So even now I have been commanded that when I get home I must take off my shoes outside in the balcony, leave it outside, and I get in the house and I take out everything. That's why you notice I'm not wearing a suit today, because I don't have so many suits that I can go home and put it in the washing machine. So I'm trying to be as casual as possible, because when I do get home I have to take off everything and practice the hygiene that we have initiated. So we're trying to put police officers Because some of them who are in direct contact with these individuals, if they do go home, the chances are they can contaminate the family. So we want to put them in a hotel where each of them have their own room, and to see for a period of time that they can stay there and be safe.
Commissioner, is there any support that the police is providing at this point to the facility?
Yes, that is Bodley facility. Yes, actually, when the situation arose, we went there. The police SSU supported the response team of the Bodley facility, and but at present, Bodley is their team has the matter under control. So we are more doing our policing duties. However, we are there. If any time that we are needed, we would be responding to assist to the Bodley Correctional.
Okay, as we wrap up, I want to get into some final comments, your final appeals to the public of Saint Lucia at this time. I want to start with you, Commissioner. I know your police are under immense pressure, and right now the support of the Saint Lucian public is key. We need our right-thinking, good citizens to step up at this point. Can I just get some final comments from you in what you want to see from the Saint Lucian public now?
Okay, before I go into the public themselves, I would at this point like to thank the officers who are, I would say, giving up their life, in as much as we are being paid to do it, but we are in a situation, but we have to be there, and the officers are coming in. What we have done as persons with pre-existing conditions, we take into consideration that, and then persons are sent home. Whenever they report that matter, and it is done on a case by case. It's not everybody just go home, because we are needed on the streets. But as I said, police officers are putting their lives, not just in terms of criminality, but in terms of COVID-19. We are there. We are doing the extraction. We are so I think I must commend them, commend everybody. We had the police band coming in yesterday who started work here to augment the regular police officers. So I am thanking them for that. And also the families, we need to remember them when this officer leaves back. My daughter, she always wants to know where I went. Did you go close to any of those persons, because of the fear that persons have. So I know it is coming from the families of other police officers. But with the public, I want to inform them that, especially those who are quarantined, please, it is for a reason that you are quarantined, that you remain in quarantine, cooperate, and after the 14 days that you would be sent home. And also what we find to the public, although the Prime Minister announced the list of businesses that should remain open, we see a lot of businesses that are not on the list open. I have the officers going around to shut down those businesses, and I think persons need to revisit that address and whether they are on the list. And in fact, it is easy to know if you are not food, if you are not essential, the regular essential services like police, fire, nurses, and so on. Then we go on to electricity, water, and food producing businesses. If you are not food producing, you should not be open. And persons are of the view, because we have a curfew at 11, they could open until 11. No, it is the food. The curfew is that at 11 there should not be any person except those that are exempted, but it still remains that you cannot open if you are not one of the persons on that list. So I would like persons to do that. And again, I am pleading for persons to take personal responsibility for their health, the health of others, and so on, and let good sense prevail, so that the officers do not have all these to go through all this trouble in arresting persons and so on. We do not really want to do that, but if it takes doing that, we would have to do it. But if persons take personal responsibility, take the guidelines from Ministry of Health, and so on the social distancing. Once you do that, we the officers, will be more officers available to go and watch your businesses whilst you stay home.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And obviously, we just want to say that we appreciate everything you have been doing, and your officers. We know you've been on the front lines as well. So thank you very much. Minister, I now turn to you for your final comments.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that the hour is gone. And there's so many things that we need to discuss. But I want to thank the Protective Services at the start. I think the Commissioner and the hierarchy of the police force and the men and women have done a fantastic job, and I want to congratulate them and ask them to continue in that vein. It is going to be trying times for them. It's going to be difficult. There are some persons who want to flout the law. There are some persons who want to challenge them, but do it in a humane way, but be firm. I want to thank the CMO, her team, the ordinary person who is at the hospital, the Honorable Mary Isaac, and today, I mean, we are transitioning from Victoria Hospital into OKU. So my prayers are with them, and I will pass there later to see whether I can carry a bed or a mattress or something inside to assist. I know my people are resilient people. I think they understand it, and in times of adversity, I know Saint Lucians get together. I have been through a lot of hurricanes and so on, and at the aftermath of the hurricanes, you can see Saint Lucians coalescing. I know that they understand the situation, and they have been giving the police the information. That's why we were able to know that there were 2 persons in the Prana area yesterday. Now, when I came here this morning, I was intent on naming one of the suspect captains who is involved in that raid. But I have changed my mind and not actually saying his name. But I want to tell him that we know him, and that the police are going to be making sure that we arrest him. And as the Prime Minister said, if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for somebody that you love. Choose one person that you love, either your mother, your daughter, your wife, your son, and decide that I don't want that person to die from COVID-19. And if you take that posture, I think you will be able to understand how dangerous that is. And we are seeing it. We had 3 cases, 2 English persons, 1 Saint Lucian coming back from New York, the epicenter of the disease in the United States. But now everybody who is showing symptoms are from Martinique. So it is difficult and it's dangerous in Martinique. So please, Saint Lucians, do not allow those persons to enter. You have the information. You can send the information to the police officers anonymously. Or if there's a friend that you understand, your district rep, call your district rep, whether it's the government or the opposition. I am sure they will pass on the information to the minister, and I will pass on the information to the commissioner. Let us continue practicing the thing that has worked, the social distancing, that has shown that it is working. Some people say that we're taking it to an extreme by putting 10 persons on a bus. But the idea is that the 10 persons, when they sit on the bus, should not be rubbing on each other, should not be touching each other. That's the main way the virus is spread. So there is some reason in the madness that we are doing, and at the end of the day, we are all in a fight. Okay? It is not for the government to succeed, it's not for the opposition to succeed or for the police. It is for all of us. And I am asking everyone to assist us, and at the end of the day, we will be rewarded when we have succeeded in winning that fight. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you, Commissioner Desir, for giving of your time and for everything you're doing in this effort to fight COVID-19. Thank you to persons who have been listening to us at home, abroad, wherever you are. Thank you for participating via your Facebook questions. As we wrap up, let me just say that at this time, our prayers and support are with those on the front lines, our police, our nurses, our doctors, our firemen, you know, the persons who are working at the supermarket and in the essential services. We appreciate you. We thank you for everything that you are doing for your country and the sacrifices you are making. To everyone else, stay home and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.